The Auburn Hotel was 8 stories of old brick and reputation on the south side of 6th Avenue. It was one of the city's oldest high-rises, lording over the old street like the citadel of some ancient fortress. It could have been a fortress, for all I cared. It wouldn't stop me. I shoved through the entrance, past the surprised door pony, past the flustered bellhop. My hooves hammered up the stairs, beat against the rough carpet of his hall, and all but battered down a particular door. The voice that answered was muffled, but still carried that rusty squeak. "Who was it?" "Housekeeping," I growled. "Look for the peephole." A moment passed as I glared up at the door. The slide and the deadbolt click, and Red Oak stood there, his hoof on the handle. "Miss Applejack," he said, frowning. "You're here at I took a step forward, planting a hoof on the door. "I told you I would figure every last bit of this out, Mr. Oak, and I'm a man of my words." Putting my weight behind my shoulder, I shoved my ways in. He staggered back, all but tripping over his hooves. "Miss Applejack, what are you—" "Sit down," I barked. "I've just been shot at, and I'm not in a good mood." His rear hooves hit the edge of a chair, and he fell back into it. "Shot at? But how?" "Because you've been lying to me, Mr. Oak." I dropped my voice to the floor, letting it grate against the rug. "Now, I understand if you don't want to give me the whole story right off the bat. But if you're going to be sending me into harm's way, the least you can do is tell me so." His head shook like a flag in a stiff wind. No, I didn't." "You didn't think there would be guns?" I threw a hoof towards the window. "Welcome to Manehattan, Mr. Oak. Didn't you hear it's the nicest city in the world?" "No, I knew there was a chance of this sort of thing, but He trailed off. His breath came in short, shallow bursts. He swallowed. "Believe me, Miss Applejack, I had no idea. I told you everything I knew. In fact, Shut up." He shut up. I leaned in, drilling my gaze into his. If there's one thing I will not stand, it's some pony lying straight in my face. "I found some letters in her apartment, Mr. Oak. Your letters. You two were still talking only a week ago." I let some teeth into my scowl. "Could've sworn you said your last contact with her was over a month back." He stared back at me, mouth agape and ears flat. His jaw made a little up and down motion, as though he were trying to nibble his way out. "So now I'm curious," I continued. "I want to know what her last letter said. What did she tell you? That you got all the way in Manhattan like there was a fire under you? What did she tell you that you ain't telling me?" He kept gasping like a fish for a moment. Then he blinked once, long and hard. He took a deep breath, meeting my gaze. "She told me not to tell any pony." I let my teeth show again. "Mr. Oak." "It's the truth, I swear. You want to know what she said? I'll let her say it." He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. "This is her last letter. The one that brought me here." I snatched it from him and looked it over. It wasn't very long or a very good read. "My darling Oak, I'm afraid this is going to be my last letter for a while, as I'm going to be very busy. Remember Mr. Cradle's window? It's sort of like that. I'll write you again as soon as I can. With all my love, Sugar Beet." Slowly, I lowered the letter. "Mr. Oak, yeah, I'd better be pulling my tail." No, I'm not. Let me explain." He took a step forward and pointed at the text. "There's a hidden message there. See this part here? Mr. Crail was this old coot who lived way down from my family's place. When we were four, Sugar and I managed to break one of his windows playing ball." He straightened up, looking at me square in the eye. We swore we'd never tell a soul we had gone and broken the window. That's how I know she was in trouble. She'd gone and done something that has to be kept a secret. Kept just between us. He paused at the door. That's why I came to you instead of the police, Miss Applejack. I thought... Well... I don't know what I thought anymore. The sound of the city crept into the room. It came in on timid hooves and sat down in one of the nearby chairs. And that's the whole truth, I said quietly. He held up a solemn hoof. That's the whole truth. I'm truly sorry, Miss Applejack. If you want to be done with this case and be done with me, I won't blame you. He picked the wallet off the nearby table. We'll settle the debt, and that'll be the end of it. I looked at the wallet, then at him. I'm insulted, Mr. Oak. He cringed. I'm insulted that I think I'll leave a job unfinished. I'm a better worker than that. He looked at me like a bird fresh from its egg, seeing the light for the first time. Are you sure, Miss Applejack? When I say something, I mean it. I gave him the edge of a smile. Besides, I'm really curious now. A shaky grin broke out across his face. Thank you, Miss Applejack. I don't know what else to say. You can start by telling me everything else you know. I know you've got more of her letters. Did she say anything else in them? Well, no. Nothing I thought out of the ordinary. Let's just have a gander at them all the same. I bet there's some clue to be had somewhere. He looked away, chewing his lower lip. You want to see them all? I raised an eyebrow. That a problem? Well, no, but it's just... some of her letters are a bit... intimate. I stared at him. There's this thing we call professional distance, Mr. Oak. Trust me, she'll need to be quite the poet to move this old heart of mine. Okay. We moved to the room's lone table, taking our seat on a sofa that had been carved by some stoneworker 1,000 years ago. I doffed my hat, setting it down next to the letters as Mr. Oak spread them across the table. I scanned through the dates, picked up the oldest, and started reading. It was typical stuff. She was doing well. Stories of her first day. She wished she was here. So, why did she decide to come to Manhattan anyway? I asked. Whoa, he said, shuffling in his seat. She was always had her eyes on the big city, even when we were foals. Lots of fillies like to dream big. I passed the letter to him. She have a plan for her life here? A sad smirk tugged at his lips. Kinda hard to plan for much in this day and age, but she had enough of a plan. She'd come here, find work, and start sending money back home, keeping in touch the whole way. I hopped on the first train out to Button Spring. I picked up the next letter, though I kept my eyes on him. She wasn't happy to be on the farm? His ears drooped, just slightly. She didn't live on the plantation, at least not until we were engaged. And how did she take to it? He shifted his shoulders, hunching them as though a draft had blown in. Well, enough, at least. I think so. He was quiet for a moment. Something moved behind his eyes. She just never forgot about going to Manhattan. I nodded. Some fellas dream big. My gaze fell to the letter. Her first day at work went well. Names of new ponies she had met. Still thinking about him. So, tell me a bit about her. She's obviously smart. His face brightened. Oh yes, definitely. She's brilliant. Strong words there, Mr. Oak. They're deserved. She was always top of her class. She cleared business school in only 3 years. And all that with a little beat for a cutie mark. Like I said, she's brilliant. I nodded again. Next letter. She was sending a bit of money this time. Hoped he was doing well. She thought about him every day, and every night as she lay in bed. The sweaty sheets wrapped around her and professional distance. I passed that one off quickly. You said you were shut up, Miss Applejack? I gave him a sideways glance. Yeah, what of it? Do you have any idea why? The stallion holding the gun said it was nothing personal. It's just that he had seen his parents get killed by a freckled mare when he was a colt. He had to take precautions is all. I turned to him. He was staring at me, wide-eyed, and I smirked. I haven't a clue. Looking for one. This one was dated around 3 weeks ago. The firm was crunching numbers for the city government before the election. She was very busy. She'd still make sure her next letter was on time. Can I ask you something personal, Miss Applejack? I won't stop you, if that's what you really mean. His left ear twitched. He nibbled his lips for a moment. Why do you do it? This whole private detective thing, I mean. It's a living. Well, of course. But there's plenty of other ways of making a living, right? Like working a plantation. He chuckled once. Point taken. Still, did you ever consider something else? Why be a detective? I let out a slow breath. Truth is, snooping suits me. It's not glamorous. It's not clean. It's not easy. But it's mostly honest work. And it pays. That's good enough for me. I took up the next letter. It was shorter than the others. It hardly filled a page. My darling Oak, there have been some interesting happenings at work. I don't want to say anything more here except, don't worry. Everything's still as right as rain. I even met somebody new the other day. His name is Flying Quill. We met over coffee and we've sort of become pen pals, you might say. If you ever get a chance to come to the city, I'd very much like you to meet him. He's a reporter for Halter's Weekly, and he's shared a lot of stories about the city with me. In all honesty, that's all I can say concerning the past week. I've sent some money along this time. I hope it finds you well, and that you'll continue to be the bright, upright stallion I know you are. Every time I receive one of your letters, it's as though the sun is shining again. With all my love, Sugar Beet. This Flying Quill, I said. You know anything about him? He frowned. No. That's the report you mentioned, right? Yeah. I passed him the letter. Any idea why she'll be mean with a reporter? Not at all. I picked up the remaining letter. It was postmarked about a week ago. My darling Oak, remember that pony I talked about in my last letter? I have been speaking with him some more, and I may have picked up on a huge opportunity. I can't say any more, but rest assured, it's something big. I'll let you know if and when I have something concrete. In the meantime, I'm going to have to keep my talk on this matter brief. He says it's better this way. Anyway, it's lovely to hear that you're doing so well. Is the side garden still not coming in proper? It might be because the plants know it's autumn, even if it doesn't show it. How they had mustered the smarts for that, I don't know, but the rest was just talk. I turned back to Oak. At the start of this one, she doesn't name him, even though it's got to be the same pony. He raised an eyebrow. Why would she do that? I don't know. Is there any hidden meaning to this garden business? None that I can tell. And the next letter is her very last? I leaned back, my hooves crossed in front of my chest. I glanced at the letters spread over the table, turned them over in my head. They spun and tumbled like a deck of cards thrown against a wall. I picked them up, shuffled them, counted their suits and numbers, looking for a pattern. There were jokers in the deck, somewhere. Wild cards. Miss Applejack? I looked at him. Well, a name's a lead. I tossed my hat back onto my head. I'll let you know if it turns out to be something. You're leaving? Can't rightly get you two back together if I just sit around. There's still daylight left to burn. I gave him a quick grin, then made my way to the door and opened it. I was just about to step through when he spoke again. Miss Applejack. I turned to look at him, my hoof on the doorknob. Yeah? I just want to thank you again. I think you're just about the only friend I've had in this city. The only friend I've had in a long time. I looked at him for a moment. Then, I tipped my hat to him. Take care, Mr. Oak. I swung the door closed and made my way down the hall as quickly as I could. Professional distance. I always leave when the job starts getting personal.